Well, welcome to another edition of Willow World. My name's Joshua Ridley, the co-founder and CEO of Willow. I'm joined today by Mark Hansen, the Chief Information Officer of Dexus, a real estate investment trust headquartered here in Sydney. Welcome to Willow World, Mark.
Thanks, Josh. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to be here too, because last week we were up in New York City. We're back here in this amazing city called Sydney. It's my hometown, and I think it's yours as well, Mark.
Oh, I've grown up here in Sydney, love the city.
Well, what's it been like for you this year?
Well, it's been challenging, and I think that's a word that everyone can relate to at the moment, but the way I've been describing it of late is the work has been relentless, and there's been an evolving environment that we're working with, and the challenge for us is just getting people back to work and making sure that our offices, our facilities are there to support our customers. But from a personal note, I think with young kids and with a family, I think and with parents that you can't actually see, I think it's something that all of us are trying to grasp and grapple with, and we're just hoping that we can move on and start to see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
And Mark, Chief Information Officer at Dexus, it's an interesting role when you've had everybody in the office and then going home. What was that like, when it sort of just happened?
Yeah, well, I think we were really fortunate that as an organisation we're very well prepared, and I've got to thank our board and our executive for really supporting technology and the strategies we put in place over the last 4 or 5 years, which has set Dexus up to be really in a turnkey situation. So when COVID hit, we were able to have our whole workforce up and operational pretty much within 24 hours. It was a really seamless transition for our business.
Yeah, I remember getting on a phone call with yourself and a couple of others at Dexus and hearing how well you transitioned because of that preparation and that time you'd put into being ready for maybe not coronavirus, but for the 21st century. What's it been like leading and rethinking how we interact with occupants and with your various groups that you need to interact with, particularly as in your role as the Chief Information Officer?
Yeah, well, look, most of us have spent a fair bit of time from home,
yes,
working from home, and we have found ways to make it work, and some good, some bad, some have had good experiences. But I think we've all come to terms with is that there are a lot of limitations in working from home. It was a bit of a novelty to start with, yes, I think it's fair to say, and a challenge to make it work for some, but I think those limitations are now coming through. But we found that our customers are really engaged in flexible workplace practices for a very long time. This isn't something new to most businesses. And in the short term, looking at how we can evolve new workplace models. And I think that's really what we're seeing from our customers, and that's the questions we're getting and how we can support them. In particular, how we can balance the physical and also the virtual workplace, yes, and get a really seamless experience for our customers.
I think you mentioned as well the culture and the collaboration and the importance of that physical space. And maybe if you could just talk to that and what your customers are saying about that.
Yeah, look, Josh, we've done a lot of work through both direct feedback with our customers, but also through a lot of surveys to really understand what our customers see the future like. And what we do know is that the workplace, the physical workplace, is a key driver for business performance. Yes. And the role it plays in facilitating, as you say, the culture, the collaboration and innovation within any business, yes, which you cannot achieve exclusively through a virtual work environment. Yes. And that's why we see the physical workplace has a very strong leading role to play.
And Dexus and your peers have been taking that leadership view, and it's been very great to see how you've done that over the last few months, actually, leading out, working with the city, working with the traditional competitors to solve this big issue, which is, okay, what is the future of office? So I've been enjoying watching that. This season that we're in with COVID has really forced the issue of flexibility, Mark, and I know lots of businesses, particularly in your space, in office ownership and providing services to tenants, have had to really think through flexibility. What have been some of the paradigm shifts for Dexus when it comes to this season and providing that flexibility?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Josh. So The current situations provide a real opportunity for Dexus as we look to manage how we provide flexible space practices for our customers. And it's not something that's really new to us, and we've been focusing on this issue for our customers for some time because it fundamentally underpins our leasing and our portfolio performance. But you've probably seen this business model evolve for Dexus more recently, and particularly in the facility you're in right now, whereby we've been introducing these new flexible products such as Dexus Place and Suite X into our portfolio for some time. And I'd be interested in your views because we've got one of those facilities in this building that you're in right now.
Yeah, well look, Mark, even before the crisis, we were using Dexus Place as a place to go, even though we've got a great office space here, to do off-sites and so on, where we could get that focused time, and it's been very effective. And being able to book that and make it an easy transaction, I think that's a good example of what we're talking about today. As the Chief Information Officer, you're in this very unique almost situation where you're sitting between leasing on the one hand and asset performance on the other hand through property management and your asset management team. And then perhaps you've even got your shareholders as well on, this third dimension. Right. And then the fourth dimension, of course, is then regulators, and in the middle is your customer. I'm just very interested to understand what this season's been like for you. How did you adapt in your role? Because technology is fundamental to what you offer to both your shareholders and your internal people, but obviously the customer.
Yeah, well, as you're aware, Josh, we've been making a lot of investments across all those themes that you just mentioned, but what we've seen, particularly with COVID, is a really strong shift away from those traditional investments that we've been making and a real focus on health, safety, well-being for our customers, which has really been driven by the COVID response. And I believe we've been really well positioned in those investments, and they're things that we've been working on for several years. It wasn't new to us when COVID arrived, and you really see that evident in some of the more recent implementations that we've made through air quality solutions, where we're really focused on improving the quality of air within the building to improve the environmentals, remove contaminants from the air and make it a healthier environment than people would find in their own homes. Add to that, we know that touching surfaces is a real issue for people. Yes. And we've been working on touchless access and touchless entry controls for a very long time. And in fact, in one of our newer assets, 100 Mount Street in North Sydney, we've introduced new biometric access systems, which are completely touchless, and more recently in our Gateway building. And in that particular asset, we've integrated about 7 new technologies, from visitor management to identity management, biometric controls, gate access systems, lift destination controls, access to car parks, also end-of-trip facilities, and also the tenancies themselves. So what that provides for our customers is a full end-to-end seamless touchless experience. And we've been working on that for many, many years. It just so happens COVID has driven a really strong business case for those type of solutions. And I think we're extremely well positioned in that area.
I agree, Mark. And just in that, just choosing one of those, occupancy. So pre-COVID, perhaps not as big a use case. Post-COVID or in COVID, a bigger use case. So that theme of this year it's a year of crisis, but it's a year of transformation. Are you feeling that? Are you feeling like that this is a season for transformation with the application of technology?
Absolutely. Well, our customers are looking for ways to support their own people. They want to provide a safe and healthy environment for their own staff. And we see that as a key driver for getting people back into the workplace. Because as I've said before, we see the physical workspace as a key driver for business performance. And until businesses can get their workforce back into that physical workspace, then we see that may have a detrimental impact on their overall performance. And there are things that we believe they'll be missing out on. And I think that's evident in most businesses where they're starting to feel that struggle between getting that right balance today. But then again, with the solutions we put in place, we see that as a really strong enabler, and technology is driving that within our workforce.
Well, let's talk about 100 Mount Street. You just mentioned that now. We've been working together for quite some time, even pre-construction on 100 Mount Street. And what did you see at the outset that you wanted to achieve at 100 Mount?
What I've really discovered in the prop tech industry in particular is that there's a lot of technologies that come to this market, and we research them exhaustively on a regular basis. And many of those go through what we call the hype cycle.
Yes.
And many of them don't come through the other end.
Right.
And as you're well aware,
Yes.
since day one, we've been putting a lot of pressure on you and your
Yes.
business to understand what is the true value of the Willow digital twin.
Yes.
And so I think we've been working together on that for some time. And really what's come out of that is, I believe, a bit of a transition in the value proposition of digital twin, particularly for Dexus, where in the early days it was very focused on a visualization tool to bring the assets within a building to the visual 3D world, so it was virtualized. But where I see a big transition for Willow and for digital twin in particular, and this is what I believe we're now achieving in 100 Mount, is the drive for data, the drive for analytics with data to drive decision making and performance, not just for us as a landlord, but for our customers and any other
Yes,
stakeholder
so true.
within the asset, and bringing that information together in a secure way.
Yes.
And be able to aggregate that out to the stakeholders and consumers of that information is really where I see the power of a digital twin
Yes.
going forward. And I believe that that's what we're starting to achieve now
Yes.
with the 100 Mount Street asset. And that's where we see in bringing that not just into a single asset, but being able to deliver that across multiple assets and a portfolio view
Yes.
is where we really see the value of a digital twin in driving portfolio performance.
So well articulated, Mark. And I hear often we've got these systems, but we can't see in the box. And I feel like what we've uncovered through 100 Mount Street and the way we've worked together is we're opening up the box. We're saying, okay, this is what the elevator arrangements look like.
Yeah.
The occupancy data on level 5 is there, but it's visualized across your leasing data. So it's been a wonderful journey to be able to do this. I'm conscious today we're sitting in an office.
That's
And
right.
lots of our viewers around the world aren't sitting in offices, and we're pretty lucky here in Sydney. What's it been like if you were to sort of talk through leading, like confidence and leadership? What's it like for you if you were to sort of speak to the people behind this camera in terms of how we could help them as they transition out of the crisis?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you are absolutely right. In Sydney and in Australia in particular, we've been very fortunate, and I think we're leading the way, particularly in the way we're starting to come out of the other side of COVID and starting to see people come back to the workplace. And we know that that's essential for both businesses and also for economies
Yes, very true.
to recover. And so one of the challenges that we're obviously facing is it's an evolving beast, COVID, and it's not something where we're seeing the goalposts are fixed and we can move towards that. It's constantly changing for us.
Yes.
But as I mentioned to you before, the way that we're using technology to support the way we're working with our regulatory partners, the way that we're working with health authorities and professionals to assess the way that our workplace is structured, the cleanliness, the cleaning regimes within our buildings. I think there's a lot of learnings in the way that Sydney in particular and Dexus and also Willow have responded.
Yes.
And those practices and those learnings, I think, are a huge value to other organisations around the world who are probably not yet at that point in time where they can now start seriously considering that return to work.
Mark, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome, Josh.
It's been great to hear from you, and it's been really great to hear the way in which you've led this out and the way you're looking at sharing that with people all over the world. So we look forward to sharing more stories from Mark and Dexus as they seek to lead through this crisis. Tune in to our next edition of Willow World. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for tuning into Willow World. You can watch all our past editions on Willow's Vimeo page. Visit our website for more information about how you can know your world.